rights really exist. Friedrich Nietzsche is the source for that very famous saying, God is dead. Remember that? God is dead. What he really meant was that because the Western world no longer took the concept of God seriously, why should it take the morality that supposedly God gave us seriously as well? That was his point. Why worry about morality if we don't even care about the God that supposedly is out there? Truth, said Nietzsche, is nothing but illusions, metaphors, traditions, and ethnic habits. The only truth is that there is no truth. And the only certainty, there is no certainty. That was Nietzsche's issue, that there is nothing that we can count on. And that was a long time ago, but my friends, we're there again. Have you heard about postmodernism? That's exactly what is postmodern today. There is no absolute truth. There is no ultimate reality. Then where do we get any kind of human rights from? Human rights? What's that? What do we have? If all the old morality is discarded, where do we get a new one? And the answer is, we create it ourselves. We decide what's real. We decide what human rights are all about. We make the decisions. How do we know if those rights are valid anyway? Well, if someone gives us those rights, can he take them away? Can he just say, you don't have those rights anymore? You don't have anything that you need that is absolute. So again, nothing is absolute, nothing is certain, including what has been termed universal human rights. If there is no absolute truth and no absolute right, forget about your human rights, because someone will take it away from you just as soon as give it to you. So if human rights are created by political fiat only, then they are technically no different than tax codes and speed limits and keep off the grass signs. They're there for the convenience of those who put them in place, and that's all that matters. In a Nietzschean postmodern world, morality comes only from within us, not outside us. But friends, Nietzsche was wrong. He was just dead wrong. There has to be a transcendent morality that is beyond our opinions, or else there are no human rights at all. Humans declaring some concepts as universal or as rights simply does not make them so, because that'll change in the next generation. Universal human rights are not what we create, bottom line, but they are something we are endowed with by our Creator. If that isn't true, then we have nothing at all that really matters, and we can't even count on it. The opening lines of the American Declaration of Independence: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Jefferson placed these inalienable human rights not with the British Parliament, not with the King, not even with the Continental Congress, but with the Creator. That's crucial. No person has any rights unless they are divinely given rights. Jefferson was about as secular a founder of America as we have, but he understood that only with a Creator could these rights be absolute. Otherwise, they're fluctuating and they disappear very easily. In other words, that some aspects of being a human being are so sacred, so foundational, that no one can take them away from us as long as we're human beings. That was Jefferson's concept of inalienable human rights. Otherwise what? If it's from humanity, from human needs, from human desires, then everything is in flux. Everything changes from generation to generation, and we really can't know anything. But again, I'm going to say Nietzsche and postmodernism is wrong. It's just wrong, because this is not what human rights are all about. A Christian and an atheist were having a debate and about the existence of God and morality. And the atheist said that all morality is purely temporary, it is cultural, no one understanding is better than any other understanding. And the Christian said, well, in some cultures people love their neighbors, in others they eat them. Which culture would you prefer to live in? No matter how liberal and how open-minded and progressive and secular and tolerant we are in our societies, we run into some moral problems that cannot be addressed by some human designation unless there are absolute realities behind them, transcendent, followed, no matter how many human beings might deem it otherwise. Clifford Goldstein writes about himself as an atheist young man. Common sense told me that if a creator existed and that my life originated in him, then I should seek to know who this God was and what he wanted from me. If God existed, and at that time he didn't believe God existed, if God existed, then nothing mattered to me more than knowing who he was. What was he like? Why did he create the world? What was the purpose of life? Did he care about me? Even in my ignorance as a young man, I was right about one thing. If I knew that God existed, nothing could ever be the same. And that's the reality, isn't it? If God does exist, nothing is the same, because it is not up to human beings to decide what's right and wrong. It is not up to human beings to give you or take away from you your personal inalienable rights. So again, I'm going to say, do human rights exist? Not in the culture in which we live, but only in the culture of Christianity. Are human rights even possible to talk about? And I'm thankful for it. Now, if God does exist, and we agree that he does, then it is our privilege and our duty to know as much as possible about him, his character, how he relates to us. But in this whole process of trying to understand God, we've got to remember one thing. We serve a mysterious God. The Apostle Paul described God's wisdom as, quote, a mystery that has been hidden. We think we know some things about God, but we don't know much, really, about all of him and what he is. We serve a God who sometimes answers our prayers with a resounding no. We need to know that about the God we serve. We feel that God sometimes allows us to bear more than is our share to bear, don't we? And we need to know that as well. We serve a God who promised to lead us into green pastures, but sometimes he leads us through the valley of the shadow of death. That God. We serve a God who told Abraham to sacrifice his only son with no promise of anything else. Just kill your son. So I'm going to say, the ultimate challenge for us who believe that God exists is to trust his wisdom totally, even when it makes no sense to us. If there is a God, and if there are inalienable human rights that every one of us has by the gift of being a human being, then our job is to understand from all sides that it is possible to understand the way he deals with us human beings, and to trust him if our evidence shows that he can be trusted. That's human rights. We have them because God gave them to us, no one else. All right, that's it. That's my presentation. I told you it'd be very short.